Hello, I am Jaime Elizondo from Real World Ranching, where our goal is to help you achieve maximum profitability while improving your land the fastest. Today, I'm going to talk about shorter rest periods type of grazing. We all have heard the term overgrazing, and while we know that it means that the grass has been regrazed before it fully recovered, many people in the public confuse it with taking the grass too low. If you look at the definition, it says taking the grass too low. So there are many reasons for this misconception. One is that there was an experiment done in the 50s by Kreider, where he proved that cutting the grass too frequently without appropriate rest periods resulted in weak and thin roots with much lower productivity. The roots stopped growing. Then he concluded that it was better under the conditions in that time, 72 years ago, to only graze half the plant. And this was a recommendation for rangeland under selective grazing. We now know that that doesn't work, as livestock are selective graziers by nature and will take down to the ground their preferred species while leaving others untouched. And that is the main reason for the desirable grass species being outcompeted by undesirable plant species. Then there is the matter of overgrazing, which is usually defined as returning too fast to regraze an individual plant before it has replenished its energy reserves. By taking only half of the plant of the desirable species, we are forced to return with our herd faster to that paddock as we got very little out of it the previous time. Maybe 10% depending on desirable and undesirable species composition. All of this means that we need to come up with a better and easier way of defining what overgrazing is so that any person can fully understand that it is detrimental to the plant, to the grassland, and to the environment. So after brainstorming many different names and definitions with people that know about this, I believe we can call overgrazing as shorter rest type of grazing. Shorter rest type of grazing. Any type of unrecovered grass grazing will weaken our best grass species. It can be continuous grazing, it can be rotational grazing, it can be top grazing, it can be grazing tall. All of them have in common returning to regraze a plant before it had a long enough rest to fully recover its energy reserves. Any type of grazing that involves shorter rest periods will result in overgrazing. Now, we need to remember that the main determinant of profitability on a ranch or farm is the number of productive animals we can carry at a low cost per year, which is also named stocking rate. Which type of grazing will avoid overgrazing while maintaining a very high stocking rate with animals in good body condition? That means longer rest periods, right? Note, we are after three objectives that go against each other under traditional selective grazing. Number one, avoid overgrazing. This means long enough rest periods for full recovery of plants even under dry or cold conditions. Two, maintain a high to very high stocking rate, which is impossible to avoid overgrazing under selective grazing at high to very high stocking rates. If you have done it, you know what I'm talking about. Three, maintain your animals in good body condition. This is necessary for productivity and immune system function and can be achieved by applying the principles of the online course Adapted Genetics Selection Guidelines, which if you are a student of the Total Grazing program, you can enroll. Now let's go back to number one. Why is it so important to avoid overgrazing? Because overgrazing, from a too short recovery period, weakens the plant roots and crown and can kill them if done for a long enough period. Overgrazing It's what causes land to desertify in a dry environment and land to go back to woodland if in a more humid environment. We want to achieve the highest productivity environment possible, and that is usually a savanna with trees and grass in it. Under the Total Grazing program, we alternate green grazing areas with stockpile areas every year to not only avoid overgrazing, but to improve the humus or carbon capture, which occurs mainly in the stockpile section. To be able to do this, we need a high harvest efficiency grazing, which I prefer to call total grazing, and including the alternated creation of stockpiled areas, we ensure we do not have to destock or incur in overgrazing when we get a longer dry season than normal, a drought. It is absolutely important to avoid overgrazing when we are in a drought, as the plant's roots and crowns will remain healthy and full of energy reserves to spring up once rains come back with a big root regrowth. 2. As stated before, what determines profitability on your ranch or farm is the stocking rate, with animals in good body condition at a low cost. When you try to achieve this under a selective type of grazing, it is ensured that when you get unfavorable growing conditions, drought, cold, or others, you will fall into overgrazing. When a drought, which slowly develops, happens, you will tend to go back and regraze the plants before they had a full recovery period, which under those conditions may be twice or 4 times as long as in normal conditions. Sometimes there is no regrowth at all. Consider a desert. So the usual advice is to destock, but I want to offer you a better option. To use the stockpile forage in the half of your property that you built when you were busy maintaining grass quality in the previous green season. Let's say you're in a desert, than in the previous 2 green seasons. Then you have much more time to decide what to do in the event of an extraordinary drought, as much of the country is experiencing now. Having enough stockpile can be the difference between failure and success. Plus, your grasses will not be overgrazed, and they will be able to fully express regrowth after the drought ends. All of this is better explained in the Total Grazing Program online course. 3. Maintain your animals in good body condition. Okay, so now we have 3 times the conventional stocking rate. We have half of our property as stockpile, which we alternate every year, and we get into a drought. So we go back to graze the stockpile section and maintain our animals' good body condition by applying Module 3 and Module 4 of the Total Grazing Program course. Module 3 is grazing in the non-growing season, and Module 4 talks about minimum protein supplementation to greatly alleviate the cost of hay and reduce your cost per cow per year by $300 on average. Of course, we need to have the optimum birthing season in place, and it helps much to have adapted genetics with selection guidelines in place. Remember, a fat cow will always bring a better price than a thin cow, and the immune system requires body fat to function optimally. Conclusion and recap. Number 1, any type of short recovery period grazing will eventually lead to weaker plants, desertifying or growing up in brush depending on the environment. This means overgrazing or short recovery period grazing should be avoided. 2, maintaining a high to very high stocking rate with animals in good body condition is necessary to increase profits and productivity, but should not be an excuse to fall into overgrazing, as that would mean our future profits are impaired. 3, maintain your animals in good body condition even at those very high stocking rates. This means you need to apply Module 4 of the Total Grazing Program and the Adapted Genetic Selection Guidelines course so that it will be easier and cheaper to attain than in any other way. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. Now you know why all selective grazing methods or types, even if rotational, fall short of the potential we can achieve with the total grazing program, and why adapted genetics plays such a big role in achieving this at a low cost. Thank you, and see you next time. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast in Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. You can also join us on the weekly email at www.rwranching.com/join. Have a great day.